I was thinking impure thoughts while my uncle was lying on his deathbed. I didn't actually know he was going to die, in spite of the fact that he was in the hospital after having had major brain surgery, and he was in a coma. My family, we all thought he was going to be okay, right? So my grandmother, my sister, and I were going to go to the hospital, and we were just going to be with him, and we were going to talk to him. Also, to be clear, the thoughts were not about him. So we got to his floor where he was at, and immediately this really beautiful doctor came walking down the hall. I didn't actually know it was my uncle's doctor because this was my first time visiting. But I remember that she came walking down the hall in like slow motion, swaying her hips. And it was like she was out of a shampoo commercial, you know? Even though she probably had a doctor's hat on. She comes to talk to my grandmother. Now, I'm 20 years old at this point and deeply, deeply in the closet. So I can't hear what she's saying to my grandmother over the sound of my libido. I catch a few things like code blue and saying goodbye. And then my grandmother is whisked away by the pretty doctor, and I could only just watch. I mean, she had a nice ass. That's what I'm saying. And then I was suddenly alone because my sister, she would tell me later that she went to go talk to our dad, whose brother it was in the hospital. And my grandmother left with the doctor. And so I made my way into this waiting room, and I was there alone with my thoughts. I wasn't the best niece. I was always embarrassed by my uncle, by his talk, his walk, his schizophrenia. I never wanted my friends to meet him, and I only knew him as a heavily, heavily medicated man. And in spite of my being embarrassed, my mom would tell me that when my sister and I were babies and toddlers, he would take care of us. He was gentle with us. He would change our diapers, babysit. And even though I was embarrassed by him, I still did that thing, where when people have a mental illness, you kind of give them sage-like qualities. And so for him, I would say, when he would say things like, "Don't do drugs, they'll fuck you up," that sounded reasonable, And he was the only person who I ever believed when he said I was pretty. So I'm in the waiting room now, and I'm a mess. I'm crying, and a woman finally walks in. I'm not doing okay. She asks me, "Are you okay?" I don't normally talk to strangers, but I told her everything. I did not come out of the closet to her. But I told her everything that was happening and how my uncle had died. And she told me, "Can I give you a hug?" I do not hug strangers. But I said, okay. And she comes in to hug me, and she's sort of a tall woman, kind of largish woman, and she reaches around to hug me, and it's really strong, but also warm too. And I'm in this waiting room, horny and heartbroken. And she wrapped her arms around me like I deserved it. Thank you.
All right, Abby Rothstein, everybody. Okay.